stereo, KDWB. Well, I see the sun has decided to come up this morning. Always makes me very nervous in case it shows any indecision. How about you? A 7:08 in the morning with Sanford and Townsend and smoke from a distant shore.
Let's start with the film, The Music Never Stopped, which features Greg, a character based on Oliver Sacks' famous subject of the case study, The Last Hippie. Greg loses his ability to remember anything after 1970, after undergoing surgery to remove a brain tumor. But if he hears music from the 60s, especially from the Grateful Dead, he is able to recall things with animated ease. Greg's predicament is a literal embodiment of the metaphorical trip I will take in this video. Using an approach based on Greg Ulmer's Popcycle, which represents a range of conductively associated memories, I will explore music, memory, and movement by reaching back into my own musical memory, set in the late 1970s in small-town Minnesota. Music and place is nothing new. In fact, psychologists have known for decades that the music we have a connection with transports us back to the place we were when we first heard the song as if no time had passed. By going back to Ulmer's Popcycle in the context of the specific music that shaped memory and place for me, I hope to show that the memories evoked by this very specific era of music reflect a communal rhythm typical to many small towns of the same time and ripe for invention. But the memories and places evoked are never static, especially since the songs were primarily listened to on the radio and in the car. It's important to walk through the discovery process that led me to realize the inventive potential for music, memory, and place. This potential, as we will see, is not necessarily nostalgic, but instead opens up access to dormant yet powerful conduits for creativity and invention that would not have otherwise been accessed. On one of many sleepless nights I have endured after having 3 children, I realized that the number 9 in the 4 decades of my life may have some productive scholarly significance. I made the initial connection when thinking about my impending 40th birthday last year on October 9th, but this obvious connection leads to the facts that I graduated from high school in 1989, made a career change and began a PhD program at UT Arlington in 1999, achieved tenure at Long Beach State, gave birth to my 3rd baby, and bought a new house in 2009. Coupled with these facts is the undeniable theme of moving and taking on new trajectories in life during each of those years, sometimes calculated, sometimes not. In 1989, I moved to Las Cruces, New Mexico from Albuquerque, where my family had only lived for 5 years, to attend New Mexico State University as a freshman. In 1999, I was living in Texas with my husband, and our move from California to Texas the year prior was abrupt and surprising to everyone we knew at the time. It goes without saying that 2009's move was perhaps the most significant, even though geographically it was the shortest. All of these moves had me wondering about 1979, the only year of my life ending in 9 that I hadn't explored. 1979, it turns out, serves as a culminating year in what I have come to realize is my deep connection to music and place, formed in the first 9 years of my life while living in a small town in rural Minnesota, and representing what Greg Ulmer calls my image of wide scope. I focus on my image of wide scope for 3 reasons. It is deeply connected to music and place. It provides massive potential for invention and discovery. And I discovered that my own image of wide scope changes the concept from static images to memories on the move. That is, my image of wide scope is actually more of a video playing instead of a set of emblems, as Ulmer suggests.
Stereo KDWB 702 with Ted O'Brien. Going to be clear to part of cloudy today and not quite so cold. High today about 15, right now 11 below.
I have linked this video version of the image of wide scope to Ulmer's very early description of what he called videocy, or video intelligence, as something enabled by the technological capabilities of video. Working out of Jack Goody, Ian Watt, Brian Street, and other literacy theorists of the 70s and 80s, Ulmer predicted that video intelligence would become a legitimate form of learning, and in contrast to analysis in literacy, invention would be the driving force behind videocy. Ulmer writes, "Until now, we could not institutionalize invention in the way that we have institutionalized analysis because we simply lacked the prosthesis needed to democratize it. As a prosthesis for invention, video served as the medium within which invention could finally stand at the forefront of writing and pedagogy, something scholars in composition were also arguing for at the time. This move is quite stunning, as Ulmer envisioned a much larger cultural role for video, even though the only format available for widespread use at the time was VHS. Perhaps because of the technological limitations of producing analog video, Ulmer moved toward hypertext in his 1994 book Heretics, especially since HTML code is so accessible. With the arrival of online video, however, we can blend the vision of videocy articulated in Ulmer's book Teletheory with the ease of linking, remixing, and repurposing that hypertext affords. Going back to teletheory, we can see that Ulmer first articulated the idea of the image of wide scope there, which, not surprisingly, was first published in 1989. He writes, "Any one individual, as part of the oral life story, will possess a small set of images of wide scope, 4 or 5 at the most, that constitute that individual's personal cosmology, and to which he or she is committed by desire and value. If method is important to problem solving, the images of wide scope, with their emotional associations, are vital to the way the problem is represented in the first place. Such images organize the information into complex sets that direct the mapping or translation process of comprehension and learning, and finally, of invention." By drawing on Roland Barthes' notion of the punctum of recognition from camera lucida, Ulmer validates the emotional and bodily reactions we feel when looking at certain images or recalling certain events. To arrive at the wide image, Ulmer introduces the concept of the Popcycle as a heuristic for discovering chance occurrences happening across all of the discourses of any person's life, which hold great inventional potential. The discourses of the Popcycle include family, entertainment, and school. In later iterations of the Popcycle, we see discipline or career, church and street or community. With each of these paradigms, the Popcycle offers a heuristic for searching our own histories for uncanny connections that may well repeat themselves across the cycle enough for us to make something from them. Also referred to as electronic or conductive logic, Ulmer turns the Popcycle into an entity that helps us become better attuned to our unconscious thought. This new attunement guides the process of discovery. I discovered my intense relationship with music and place while trying to think of my own Popcycle. As I mentioned, I have identified music playing on the radio during the mid and late 70s as my image of wide scope. After wrestling with this for some time, I realized that my own wide image is not static. I cannot identify one image, which is uncanny in itself since it adds a dynamic sense to the Popcycle. My emblem is in motion. It is a video that consists of me listening to the music on the radio while driving in the cars and school buses of my childhood.
These musicians connect him to a time and a place. You know how you hear a song and it places you back in that moment when you fell in love with it, as if no time had passed?
Dad grew up on the road. On the road, you never really know what's gonna happen when you arrive, so you just experience the ride.
That's what that means.
To arrive at the discovery of my wide image as video, I took the following steps. I first put my given name, Sarah Hazel Johnson, into the Internet Anagram server, and one of the results was Raja Shah Zen Solin. This combination struck me in a few ways. First, I noticed the cross-cultural connection to royalty, Raja and Shah, plus my name Sarah, which means princess in Hebrew. I started pursuing this line but didn't get very far. So I went to Solon, and this is where the minefield of connections exploded. I found out that the ancient Greek tourist also resonated for Ulmer. Solon served as a metaphor for Ulmer's vision for his virtual consultancy for electricity, the famous Emer Agency. I also vividly remembered that my first major in college in 1989 was hospitality and tourism, since I was determined to become a tourist myself then. The theme of the tourist continued as I connected the road trips of my childhood to my most resonant learning experiences. I discovered that fleeing our small town in Minnesota for both vacations and excursions to the Twin Cities shaped the way I not only envisioned the physical landscape around me, but also molded the mental imagery associated with my own developing literacy. I literally learned to read on the road, but not with my nose in a book. Instead, I constantly gazed out the window reading signs, bumper stickers, and the words painted on cars and trucks. These early memories of literacy always had a soundtrack, as the formative experiences occurred in the car with the radio on. Cars, roads, maps, and music continued to repeat for me, and the theme of the move permeated my own Popcycle. In contrast to others' emblems that constitute one image, such as Byron Hawk's image of a hawk simultaneously flying upward and flowing downward, as he articulated in his By story, my emblem is on the move. It is a video of a girl sitting with others in a moving vehicle, looking out the window and listening to the radio. An image of this scene would not be adequate, as it could neither support the movement of the car and passing landscape, nor capture the music from the radio. It could not articulate the relationship between music and memory. For me, radio is associated with 1970s Minnesota. Radio there and then was about dwelling, living, sitting, looking out windows, watching the passing snowdrifts and farmlands, thinking, watching the rows of corn blur by, even connecting, squishing in the back seat of my friend's mom's Pacer, no seatbelts on, coming home from a basketball game singing Real Love by the Doobie Brothers. For me, the place is not only connected to the memory, but it also instigates invention by calling up specific moods and feelings that would not otherwise be accessed. Thus, the Popcycle is on the move.
Stereo KDWB. With that, even the call letters are coming out tough this morning. 803 with Ed O'Brien. Just a couple of minutes, I got some music to give away. If you'd like to copy down the telephone number here.
My wide image as video cuts across the Popcycle as follows. Family, 5 of us, then eventually 7 of us, driving back and forth to the Twin Cities, KDWB on the radio, 70s top 40 songs playing, most notably Afternoon Delight by the Starland Vocal Band and You Are the Woman by Firefall. Dad drives everywhere, from road trips to California, Canada, and New Orleans to just driving around town or heading to our lake cabin. We are always on the move. We even get in the car to escape summertime tornadoes. Chuck Mangione's Feels So Good plays while we drive away from the menacing funnel cloud. School. Driving on the school bus through the snowy landscape, stopping at the junior high and high school before finally getting to the elementary school. The aisle on the bus is caked with dirty snow, and the bus driver also has KDWB on, and sometimes the local station, KLFD, plays. It doesn't matter though, since the same songs like Steal Away by Robbie Dupree and Crazy Love by Poco dominate any station. The music is communal. No one has headphones yet, so we all mouth the words of the songs. Entertainment. Like many other families, sports have always brought my family together, and my parents have season tickets to the University of Minnesota Gopher football games. The drive takes an hour and a half, and we go to every home game. Saturdays in the car, Thunder Island by Jay Ferguson is playing. Career. Simply put, the moving image of my Popcycle evokes my relationship with my chosen field of rhetoric and composition. Contemplation in the presence of and alongside others while passing through the landscape. I link this type of contemplation to those very early memories of listening to music on the move, and, like Ulmer's own Popcycle entitled Derrida at Little Bighorn, Participatory practices, combined with various media, have always been with me. I return to an unfinished analogy Ulmer started in teletheory, and interestingly, one of the few places he uses the term videocy. He writes, "Alphabetic literacy is to criticism as videocy is to what?" and leaves a question mark. The question mark can be replaced with invention. Alphabetic literacy is to criticism as videocy is to invention. The image on the screen now, the girl participating in her own environment while sitting in the back seat of the car, represents to me the participation, or videocy if you will, that was not possible with my own wide image. It shows how participation in one's own musical set of memories creates knowledge and fosters a sense of community with the passing landscapes, literally bringing the place into the experience. A practice that brings together music, memory, and place, sets the Popcycle in motion, and encourages the return of videocy.